What is up, guys? CharleyPangus here. Welcome to day 2 of 10 days of t-shirt designs. This is going to be a really fun design today. We're going to do a crest-like design. As you can see, I took some notes up here pretty much to help me with this design and kind of give me inspiration. So 1903 is when the first powered airplane was created, and Explorer is just some, filler text, whatever, but it goes with the whole thing, I think, so that's why I put Explorer. And then just these are notes really, and this helps me out with my design because a lot of times when you're doing a design, it's good to kind of prepare yourself before you start designing it, just to give yourself an idea of what direction you want to go in. So I did my research a little bit on this airplane type design, and this is what I came up with. So now we're going to start piecing it together, and using these notes, we're going to be doing some really cool stuff. So anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and start designing. So the first thing I want to do is draw a rectangle or something like that because I want this to be a shield. So this is actually easier than you may think. So we're just going to draw out a rectangle right here, and the size can be like approximate. You don't have to be perfect with it. So I'm just drawing out a rectangle, and it doesn't have to be any particular color, but I'm going to make it black just for the sake of this video. I'm going to keep everything black and white. And I'm probably going to texture it at the end just to give it a little bit more of a vintage feel, since I did envision this being more vintage. So now I have this rectangle, and what I want to do is I want to round the bottom only, not the top. So all I have to do is take my direct selection tool, or you can just hit A on the keyboard, and I'm going to select the bottom of this and just go all the way up with it. Now what I want to do is select the top as well, because I want to give it a little bit more of a round look. I'm going to draw out another rectangle while I'm right here, just because we're already here, so why not just get it done, right? So I'm going to draw out another rectangle about yay big, and I'm probably going to put it over the top just to make sure I'm sizing it correctly, just like so. And that's fine. That's looking good. So I can let go of it now, and I can recenter it just to make sure it's centered. And I'm also going to round these corners as well, because we're going to keep everything nice and round. I don't want it to be too round, but I want it to be consistent with everything else. So that's looking great. The next thing I want to do is I actually want to add some sort of a stroke around the whole thing. But before I do that, I need to duplicate the top layer and then basically expand or create an offset is what it is, and fill this with white, and you'll see why in a second. So we're just going to duplicate this, copy, paste in front, and then we're going to go to Object, Path, Offset Path. And you'll see what this is going to do in a second. So we're going to go to Preview, and we're just going to figure out where we want this. So I'm probably going to do 2 on here. So we're going to offset it on 2, and that's actually looking fine. I'm happy with that. Click OK. So now we have 2 shields. So we have 2 shields because we duplicated it and then offset one of the paths, and the offset path one is in the back here. And you'll know that it's the one because it's bigger than the one that you originally had, just simply because we offset the path. So I hope this is making sense. So now I have the one in the back and I have the one in the front, and we're going to make the one in the front white just so we can see what we're doing, and that's looking great. That's exactly what I wanted. So the next part can be a little confusing, but what I want to do is I want to take this rectangle and delete it from this shape right here. So we're just going to duplicate the shape real quick so we have a copy of it, and we're also going to duplicate this. So copy, paste in front, and you'll see why we're doing that in a second. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the rectangle here, or the banner, whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to select the white fill here, and keep in mind we have a copy of it, so don't worry. So now we have both selected, and now I'm going to do minus front, and what that did is it just deleted it from the rectangle. So the rectangle got deleted from the white fill, and that's perfect. That's what we wanted. So now we can actually move this, and as you can see, it's cut out, and that's what we want. So anyway, it's going to make more sense as we go along. If you're getting lost at any point, just pause the video and keep watching me do it, and you'll eventually get it, I promise you. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to select the banner, duplicate it one more time just so I have a copy, and now we're going to select the banner and the background, which is the offset path rectangle that we created, and we're going to merge them both together just like so. So now you can probably see why we cut the white fill out, because if we didn't do that, this whole thing would blend together. That's exactly why we did that. So as you can see, we just have a black fill back here with the crest, everything's merged together, and then we have this on top to create that cutout look. So that's basically all we did. So now what I want to do is I want to create this outline. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy the shield, not the fill, not the white fill. We're going to copy the shield, and we're just going to do copy, paste in front, and we're gonna add another offset path to this, and you'll see why in a second. This time we don't want the offset path to be too big. That's way too big. So we're just gonna do like that. That's fine. We could probably even do less than that actually. I said less and then I put more. So now we're putting less because I don't want it to be too thick on the outside, but I just want it to be enough to make a difference. So now we have two crests because we just created an offset path. We have one that was offset, which is this one in the background, and we have the one in the center. And just to show you, I'm gonna make it a different color so you can see what I'm doing. So as you can see, we have the red, which is the smaller crest inside, and then we created the offset path to create this outside one. So now we're gonna create an inside stroke. So all you have to do is select the inside one and make the stroke white, and then we're gonna add it as an inside stroke. So go to Align Stroke to Inside right here, and all I did was I clicked on the stroke menu, and then I did Align Stroke to Inside, and then what we wanna do is make sure all the corners are rounded, and that's pretty much it. We can even make that stroke smaller if we wanted to, or thinner, but it's actually looking fine. I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at the way this is looking, so we'll keep it just like that. So now we have a inside stroke, which is on this inner crest right here, see? That's all it is we added an inside stroke to this inner crest, and then we kept the outside one that we created an offset path on just as normal, so it's just black filled. That's all it is. So now we are looking really good. We are almost ready to start piecing together everything else. Before we add all the vectors, I want to get the text put in place just to kind of start filling it up. So we have Explore here, so I'm just gonna duplicate that since I already have it up there, and I'm just gonna enlarge it. And I'm gonna make it white as well because it's black and it won't be able to be seen, and we don't want that. And I'm gonna make sure it's in front of everything. And all you have to do to make sure something's in front of something else is do Control Shift and use the bracket tools on your keyboard, or the bracket keys on your keyboard, and that will actually adjust the position or the front and back position of the whatever you're selecting. So now we have Explore, and I'm gonna go ahead and outline this text because I wanna be able to center it perfectly. All right, so my text is in place. Now I'm gonna start laying down some vectors. One thing I wanted to note is I'm not really happy with the thickness of this banner now. I wish it was actually longer and also just shorter as far as the height goes, because I didn't like how it's so thick right here. It's just bugging me right now, but again, it's fine for now, but that's something I would have definitely fixed, just as a side note. But now we're gonna start laying down our vectors, so let me go ahead and grab them. And these are all pre-made already, so I have my cloud and my airplane. We're just gonna drag them in here. And then the next thing I wanna do before I even actually mess with these vectors any further is I'm gonna take my 1903 text and I'm gonna put it down here. And I want to make sure that the text is actually the right size, because I want Explorer to stand out more, so I don't want 1903 to be too big. That's actually fine. I'm happy with that. So now we have Explorer 1903. Now I'm going to take my plane and put it in place. Like I said, I pre-made these vectors, but if you have trouble making these on your own, just go online and find some free vectors to use, and then you can just use it in your design. Anyway, so now I'm going to drag this, and I'm actually going to duplicate it just in case I need it again. Now I have my plane set in place, and now it's centered. And what I'm gonna do now is resize it because it's way too big. And I want to keep a gap right here in between the inner crest or whatever, the inner white fill. And the reason why is because I want it to look like this, see? I want it to look uniform and everything looks nice and fitted. I don't want it to do this because then it's just gonna overlap everything, and I don't want that. That's not the look I'm going for. So you might be going for that look, but for me, I don't like that, so that's why I'm doing this way. And the next thing I want to do is fill it black because it's an off black color and it's not matching everything, and I don't like that. So that's looking good. Everything's in place, and the one thing I'm noticing so far is this tail's kind of cutting into the Explore banner, and I don't want that either. So what I'm going to do is just create a box right here, and you'll see what I'm doing in a second. And I'm basically going to kind of match the gap right here. I like the gap right here, so I'm gonna try to get it pretty close. Now that I have the rectangle, I'm gonna actually select the rectangle and select the plane, and we're gonna use minus front, and it's gonna delete it out of the plane, just like that. So now it looks like it's going behind the banner, and that's exactly what I wanted, so that's beautiful. I'm happy with that. So the next thing I wanna do is add an outside white stroke to this to kind of make it look like it's going over the top of this crest. So that's pretty easy to do. You just add a stroke. And 5-stroke looks fine, and then align that to the outside, which is the far right aligned stroke right here, and that's what it's going to look like. See, now it's looking like it's going over the top of the crest, and that's exactly what I wanted. So the next thing I want to do is I want to add some movement marks to make it look like this plane's actually in movement, because right now it looks really still. There's nothing special to it. So in order to accomplish this look, all I'm going to have to do is go to my line tool here, my line segment tool, and just draw out some lines that are filled with black stroke, and then I'm going to round them because I want them to look round like everything else, just like that. And I'm gonna drag this into place and kind of figure out where I want it. And I think I want this one like right here. We could even make it a little thicker, like so. That's not gonna hurt anything. And I'm gonna make this one a little shorter. So I went to my direct selection tool, and I'm just basically shortening this using the arrow keys on my keyboard. And in case you don't know how to do that, go to the direct selection tool and just select one of the points instead of both of them, and you can basically use your arrow keys to adjust it. So instead of having to redo it on the right side, I'm just gonna basically group everything together, and I'm gonna duplicate it. And then transform it, reflect, and I'm gonna reflect it vertical, and that's just gonna basically flip it. And then I'm gonna kind of put it in position where I think it needs to be. Now I'm gonna select both of them and then align it to my canvas. See, just like that, beautiful. Now we have an airplane that looks like it's going over the top of the crest, and then we have the movement marks all set in place. Now what I can do is start adding my clouds to give it a little bit more of a cool feel. So now I'm gonna grab my cloud, and the cloud's gonna have to be duplicated quite a bit because we're gonna be adding it in the background here. Before I duplicate it though, I wanna make it black like everything else. So the purpose of that is you don't wanna duplicate it, then have to go back and recolor it later on. That's a pain. So now I have the cloud, and I'm just gonna duplicate it a couple times, and we're gonna start positioning it where we think it needs to be. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you know, kind of use your best judgment on this. So there's really nothing to it. You just kind of have to experiment and see what looks better. So that's actually looking pretty good. Sure, I could have did a better job placing them, but overall this doesn't make me mad, and that's always a good thing. If it makes you mad, then you should probably fix it. Because I mean, it's always good to look at something like for a little bit and determine if it's, you know, what you wanted or not. All right, so next we're gonna add some texture to this design. Since I'm happy with it, I'm ready to go. I'm gonna go ahead and bring this design into Photoshop, add some really cool stamp-like texture to it, and finish it off and give it that really vintage feel like we were talking about. Welcome to Photoshop. So now I already have my design created in Illustrator, so we're complete in Illustrator, and now we're just gonna grunge it up in Photoshop. So what I did is I actually copied the design that I had in Illustrator. I selected all of it, and I'll show you guys how I did that real quick. So all I did was I selected the whole thing. I did edit copy, or you can do control copy, and then now all I have to do is paste it. And I wanna paste it as a smart object first because we're gonna resize it a little bit. Smart objects you can basically resize without losing a lot of data or pixels, and that's why I like to start with a smart object, and then I'll rasterize it before I texture it. So that's looking good. Now what I want to do is rasterize it. So if you guys haven't actually textured anything before, or you don't know how to create textures, I would definitely go and watch my texture video that I made, because it goes into more depth on how to create your own textures. Or you guys can find another video online on texturing, because it's going to really help you out in this video. You don't need to add texture to this design though. If you want to, you can totally do that, but it's not needed. It just gives it a little bit more of a vintage feel, which is why we're doing that today. So anyway, I'm gonna create a new layer now on top, and this is gonna be my texture layer. So I'm just gonna name it texture. I already have pre-made textures, so I'm just going to use one of those textures in this video. So now let's go ahead and find it real quick. Blah, 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 where is it at? And you kind of have to play with it a little bit. Like, there's so many textures that I have, so I'm not even sure which one I really want to use. This one's actually really cool, so I'm gonna use this one. And all I have to do is kind of paint over it. So the texture's added, but it's way too intense. So what I'm gonna do is add a layer mask, and I'm gonna make sure black's selected here, and I'm just gonna basically paint back over it in spots that I want it to be lighter, just like so. And it's good to add like a lot of texture to this kind of stuff because it's obviously what we're going for anyway. So I'm gonna add some more back on top and redo that because I think I took away too much. Like I said, you want it to be kind of, you know, you want it to be noticeable. You don't want it to be like too light because then it's gonna defeat the purpose of the effect that we're going for. So now we're gonna finalize the texture and get it ready for print basically. So what I wanna do is select everything that I just did and put it in a group. So I'm just gonna do Control G on this and it's gonna group everything together so we can name this design or whatever. And I wanna select an entire copy of it now so I can finalize it. So now I just do Control A, copy merged up here. So go to Edit, copy merged, and then do Control V to paste it, and then you can hide everything. So now we have an exact copy of everything, the entire canvas, including the background, which is what we want. And now in order to finalize this, what we can do is we can go to filter, we can add a Gaussian blur, just a small blur though, nothing too intense. So we want to do like a 1.3 blur on this. All right, so now we have our blur. Now we need to finalize this. So all you have to do to finalize it is add a threshold. And the way I do that is go to adjustments, or go to image, adjustments, brightness and contrast. We're gonna check use legacy, and we're gonna raise the contrast all the way up. Now what you're gonna notice is you're gonna lose all the detail in your design, but that is completely okay. We're gonna bring it right back. So in order to bring this right back, we just go to brightness and we go right with it. If you go all the way left, you'll see that it's going to make the canvas black, and we don't want that obviously, so we just go right, and we want as much detail as possible, so we're gonna raise it all the way up. And as you can see, now the design is fully textured and it looks very vintage. I actually think that I could have made it more intense with the texture, so we're gonna go back and just fix it real quick. And this happens, guys. Sometimes you have to add more, sometimes you have to play with it a little bit, but in this case I'm not happy with it, so I'm gonna add some more texture real quick, just like that. Just go one pass over it, just like that. So I added more texture. I'm gonna do the same process as I did last time. I'm gonna copy the entire canvas, copy merge, paste it. I'm not going to add a blur again like I did last time. I'm just gonna go straight up to image, adjustments, brightness and contrast, and use legacy, and go all the way up with the contrast again, go up with the brightness. And as you can see, we're getting a lot more data now, a lot more detail, and that's what we want. So we're gonna go up to like 90 and then click OK. And as you can see, the texture's there and it's looking beautiful. So now the texture's done, what I want to do is I want to get rid of all the white out of this design. And the easiest way to do that is go to select and then go to color range. And it's also worth noting that you need to make sure you actually need to select the layer that you want to do this to, or else it's not going to work. So I'm already selecting the layer 1, which is the complete design with texture, and I'm just going to select the white. And what that's going to do is it's going to tell this program, it's going to tell Photoshop that you want to get rid of all the white, and it's going to let you basically determine how much white you want to get rid of by adjusting the fuzziness. So we want to get rid of as much white as possible, so I'm just going to go up to like 190, that should be fine, and click OK. And as you can see, it's going to select everything. Now all I have to do is hit delete on my keyboard, and that's it. And now we have a fully textured design, and it's ready to go. And we can even change the color on this. I'll show you what that looks like. See, we can add any color we want. So as you can see, there's a lot of flexibility using Illustrator and Photoshop. Photoshop, I use mainly just the texture like I showed you guys today and coloring things, but a lot of the times I really don't need Photoshop unless I'm going to texture things. So that's really the purpose of using Photoshop, is for texturing, at least for me. There's some people that design everything in Photoshop. I used to do that, but I recently stopped doing that. So simply because Illustrator is a vector program and a lot of people ask for vectors nowadays, so it's not a bad thing to use Photoshop either, so don't let it discourage you, obviously. That is it for day 2 of 10 days of t-shirt designs. I hope you guys enjoyed day 2 and the design in general. This is actually a little bit more complicated than the last one we did. The last one, if you guys remember, we did a text-based design. But that's it for day 2, guys. I just wanted to thank you guys for joining me today, and I will see you guys in day 3 of 10 days of t-shirt designs. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram, guys. I'm always active on there. I'm always posting my work and other cool things. It's basically like a little blog for my life. So go check me out on Instagram. It's at CharleyPangus. I'm looking forward to meeting all you. I will see you guys in day 3. Thanks for watching. Bye.